You're watching TelecomTV's exclusive coverage of the ETSI NFV number 9 meeting in Prague here in the Czech Republic. And joining me now is Paul Grunsund, who is research scientist with Telenor Research. Paul, welcome again to TelecomTV.
Thanks.
First thing I'd like to ask you is about the openness and collaboration we're seeing in the industry. We've talked about vendor cooperation in the past, but what about service provider collaboration? Are we still seeing sufficient collaboration between providers?
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, we have the openness that is coming with the virtualization, NFV and SDN, open source and all that. So we do see a lot of more collaboration between vendors, and it's very open. And I also think that between service providers, it's sort of the same. In a way, it's also opening up because we are also participating in standardization and also into open source developments and so forth. So yes, there is maybe an increasing openness. I would believe so. And there are many arenas where we do these discussions and have this openness. So, for instance, the ETSI NFV ISG meetings is one of them, where when we do contributions, we defend the contributions, discuss them, and challenge them. And then it's very often discussions related to why is this contribution important? And it often pops up like, what are the thoughts of service providers in terms of integration and things like that. So yes, this is a good place. And there's also a lot of discussions in the hallway, right, between service providers and discussing other things like the organizational issues, like the platform issues and integration with OSS, BSS and legacy systems. So yeah, there is, and we also have other arenas. So last month I presented or attended a workshop on arranged by the IWPC on network virtualization, and that was also an arena where we had the industry, both the service providers and also the vendors, and we were there, Telenor, and it was hosted by Vodafone, Deutsche Telekom was there, Everything Everywhere, Telecom Italia, and Colt. And all of us gave presentations with kind of what are the best practices in a way, or what are the thought roadmaps, what type of issues do we see when it comes to OSS, BSS. And one of the things I also presented was how we have assessed the use cases for NFV and SDN in terms of cost, benefit, and performance. And that also triggered a lot of discussion, which was very valuable for me and us as a company. And I also think that was really valuable for the service provider and also the vendors. And we also had panel debates where we discussed a lot of questions in detail. So that's valuable.
That's encouraging to hear. And as you say, there are a number of different arenas that you really have to participate in, and that seems to be growing. How can the industry ensure that there's no duplication of work and that everyone's maximising their time to develop NFV and get it deployed? Yeah,
that's a good question. There is development in many places, and the same thing is probably being done in several places. That's also the case in standardization. And I think the way of doing that is, one way of doing it is like what ETSI is doing by having a liaison with the other standardization organs in terms of cooperating instead of doing the same thing over and over again, and maybe reuse work being done in other standardization organs. So that is one way of doing it. The other thing is that there will, of course, be developments by different companies and also open source communities. Yeah, there will be developments that is overlapping, that we are doing the same thing, and that's maybe not a bad thing. I would say that it's also a good thing because you will have competing approaches, and we will see some becoming the dominant, whereas other will maybe fall out as we go. So, but how to assure that the assurance part is, yeah, it's maybe to use the standardization organs in a good way, I would say.
Focusing on service providers still, in Europe in particular, we're starting to see some signs of consolidation within the industry. If this continues, is this going to in some way benefit NFV rollout, or will it put the brakes on it and you might say there's less need because there's less competition?
I haven't thought much about that, but I do think it's not like service provider will start virtualizing because they plan to do a consolidation or something. It's more, I think, but on the other side, I think when service providers consolidate, there's a lot of things that needs to happen. You have to separate organizations that needs to merge and consolidate. You have the business department services being offered, and you also have the service platforms. And in some time or another, after a while, you will have to migrate them in a way and consolidate them to reach the benefit of the consolidation. Offer one set of services and things like that. So there will be a need to then maybe to upgrade certain systems like the EPC. You don't want to live with two different EPCs for a long time. You might even want to deploy a completely new one or upgrade one of them. So it's maybe more so that a consolidation might be a trigger for virtualization. So it's a good opportunity to start doing virtualization. Regarding whether consolidation will slow down virtualization, I don't think so, because I still think that some of the visions with the virtualization, the benefits we foresee will be there still, and even though there is a consolidation, there will still be a pressure to really reduce costs and to maximize revenue and to achieve the benefits with NFV. So yeah.
Okay, and what about continuity of service for these providers? Can service providers roll out virtualized network functions on existing architectures and equipment, or is it dependent on new spending, new CapEx, new OpEx spend?
Yeah, so there will be some needs for investments for sure. So operators, they have data centers, so NFV, when you put up VNFs, virtual network functions, you will need to put them in a data center. And there is different maturity of the data centers. I mean, some of the data centers might be old, you might be needing new ones, but certainly you can maybe reuse much of that, but you will still need to maybe upgrade. But you also have the software side of it, so we will need to have this NFV platform. The NFV infrastructure, for instance, will need to be put in place, and maybe also if you look at the mono part of NFV, you will need to have the virtual infrastructure manager. That might be open source, and it's like, but you will still need to have some support on it. You will need to maybe have need for integration and so forth. And you also have the orchestrator, which is a new thing, I would say, for operators, and you will need to have that in place. And finally, also on the software side, you have the integration with the OSS and the BSS systems, which is currently a big challenge, and it's also a question mark of how to do that. Should you integrate with existing OSS BSS systems, or should you deploy a completely new one, or a set of new ones? And what we will do there is a question. And then you also have when you consider the organizational changes, there will be some need to have the new competence to do this. So you might need to start educating the existing staff, and you might also need to acquire some new competence. And there will be need for some organizational changes, at least if you have the vision to reach the full benefits of virtualization. So yes, there will be need for investments, definitely. So
you spoke earlier about the meeting between the mobile operators sharing use cases. In terms of mobile, what role will NFV play, and what are some of the early examples of NFV usage that we're going to see within the mobile area?
Yeah, regarding the use cases, yeah, I mentioned that we have done an assessment to look into it, and there is a wide set of use cases. Some are maybe most of the use cases we see early on is the more traditional telco use cases like virtualization of the EPC, virtualization of the IMS, and we also look into virtualization of services on the SDI LAN, and we have been doing some proof of concepts there. We are looking into virtualization of SDI LAN services such as TCP optimization, video optimization, analytics, and using SDN to do the traffic steering. And this is maybe one way to start. And we are also now doing a POC with virtualization of the EPC, where we do a split, quite innovative approach. And I think all of these components or network functions that reside in the core network are might be a starting point. But then we also have the more use cases going into the edge of the network with virtualization of the base station, which is also we see as it's very interesting. It has the potential to give high benefit, but it's still a bit early to say, because I think it's the maturity of the virtual base station use case is less than the other use cases in the core. But there will be need for development all over the place, and it will be exciting to see where the deployment comes first.
Indeed, very interesting. Paul, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us on TelecomTV today. Thank you.
Thank you.